Thanks so much for joining us on the Voice of Job Seekers podcast, the award-winning podcast and blog. If you want to know more about the show, go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com. You can leave a message right there on the blog. Press the send voicemail button in red on the right side. It will activate your laptop mic, and you can just leave a message. How simple is that? You can also text, call, or write me. Just visit the show notes at thevoiceofjobseekers.com for that information. The feature interview for today is with Susan Rooks, the grammar goddess, as we discuss effective grammar writing for business and your job search. I'll link to last year's show so you can use both as a resource and motivation to write more effectively. But before we do that, let's hear from Victoria Crispo, who is a career development expert, manager of college and professional outreach at idealist.org. I first met her when she was the content manager at idealistcareers.org a couple of years back. Idealistcareers.org is where the blog is. Idealist.org is where they have the job board. So both will be very useful to you. Idealistcareers.org is where they have great content there for your job search. I happened to ask her for some holiday job advice tips, since it's that time of year for those of you who need some additional income or just need a job. I went to an event there at downtown Chicago, and we met up in person. So this was a refreshing live version of Q&A. So here is some holiday job search advice Victoria had to offer. This is a time during the holiday in general, and I'm trying to gather some, just some information from certain career professionals about getting a job during the holiday. So perhaps you have one or two or three tips, quick, that people can really find some value in to move forward with their job search.
So one thing that I can say is if you are currently employed but looking for a job, sure, the holiday season is a good time if you have some time off, and it can really help you take that step back away from your typical job responsibilities and be able to focus a little bit more on your job search. And if you are currently not working and you're looking for a job during the holidays, definitely don't be afraid of that search or think, people are busy, or people are out of the office, they're not going to have time to be looking at, job applications or be interviewing. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of organizations that are hiring at that time. And I've heard of many a person who have gotten their jobs during the holiday season or right at the new year or in right. those couple of months prior to that. So,
right. I think it's a good time to listen to the news and listen to the jobs that are being out there. I mean, you've heard about Target. Target is hiring 100,000 people. I mean, that's not bad if you need something right away. Still, don't abandon what you need to do as far as maybe targeting a company and the company that you want, the position you want, because it is about where you want to work and what you want to do. But ultimately, if you're looking for something that's maybe beyond that maybe you don't have a career path at the time, it might be a good time to kind of detour and make your way with that particular strategy. So this is the second time she's been on the show. She is the grammar goddess and can be found at grammargoddess.com. She's a copy editor and a corporate educator who has traveled the world training audiences on various subjects, including business writing. But before I play our conversation, I thought I'd pay a little adieu to National Punctuation Day, which is September 24th of every year. I recognize and know as a writer how critical one comma splice potentially is a deal breaker. I'm glad I write on blogs where there are really good editors and they're able to catch some of my comma splices. But you do want to try to come in as best to 100% as possible. But back to National Punctuation Day. You can go to nationalpunctuationday.com for this information, but it says that there is celebration of a lowly comma, correctly used quotation marks, and other proper uses of periods, semicolons, and the ever mysterious ellipsis. Now, in essence, really what it comes down to is how punctuation really changes the meaning of a sentence. And I'm just going to read a few sentences, some that you've seen in memes on Facebook and all other places, but it does make all the difference in the world, as you should know by now. But to help grow more conscious and to prepare, of course, for the interview with Susan, put you in the mindset, let's eat, mommy, as opposed to let's eat, mommy. Chuckle, chuckle. Or don't use commas, which are not necessary, as opposed to don't use commas, which are not necessary. How about giant moving sale Friday, as opposed to giant moving sale Friday? See the difference there? Anyway, again, this is kind of to prepare you for our talk as we talk about punctuation as well as other meaningful aspects of grammar. So here is my interview with Susan. Thank you so much, Susan, for coming back to the show.
You're very welcome. I'm very much appreciative that you asked me. Thank you so much.
Sure. Now, let's jump right into it. Effective business writing for social media updates. It's pretty essential these days because that's the form in which most people prefer to be communicated with. Even if you include text, many times you're going to have one shot to communicate an idea, a thought, a direction, or anything of that sort, right?
Yes, and unfortunately, because we have the Internet, and I'm saying unfortunately only because the Internet makes it available to everyone. I know that you're the job seeker coach, and what I've talked to some of my friends who write resumes for others or help them find jobs in another way, we all agree on one thing. If you're going to ever be seen as a business professional, you need to clean your act up on social media, because you don't know who's going to see it today, next week, or 3 years from now. You don't know for certain that your next job, somebody might be looking for you and seeing something that was unfortunate that you posted. So business writing has morphed from just emails, just memos, just letters, to pretty much everything that we write that someone could see, and we have no control over most of it.
Yeah, and I think people are going to glean a number of things from that one piece of communication. They're going to glean either some emotion, or they're going to glean some type of idea, or they're going to question whatever is being written. There's a lot of ways that there's a certain amount of intelligence that that person's going to exert. You've got to assume that they're going to exert all of them in interpreting. And it's not something that, we can talk about the cognitive science of it all. But all in all, you do get this one shot, most of the time anyways, to make an impression. And writing, if you don't, then pretty much you can ruin your chances.
Yeah, I understand from the people who go through the process of vetting new candidates that there are hundreds, if not thousands, sometimes of resumes that come through with or without a cover letter, and that's a whole other world.
Yes.
But how do they make a decision? Yes, keywords are important. Having read the job ad and making sure you know what you're applying for is important. But how do you stand out? And for some, it's going to be in a good way. You knew what you were doing. You know how to write it. It was proofread by somebody who actually knows how to proofread and copy edit. Or it's a bad one. and it looks awful from the beginning. To me, Mark, it's a little bit like wearing clothing.
Yes.
Most people go to an interview in a suit or something appropriate for what they're applying for. And this is your world, not mine, but I've applied to a few jobs over my lifetime.
Right.
And the reality is we don't go in our jeans unless we're applying to be cleaning out barns or something that would be an appropriate costume for. We dress up. We wear something nice. If it's a man, you're going to have a tie, a jacket, maybe a suit, depending again. A woman is going to be wearing either a smart pantsuit or a dress, again, depending on the kind of world. But you send out letters, you send out emails, you send out texts, and they're not well clothed. Many times they look like they never left second grade. Mm-hmm. And somebody's going to make a decision, unfortunately, based on what they think you are. You may not be, but why take that chance?
Right. And in this day and age, if you're trying to have a professional, brand, we can use that these days, all of your communication should be cohesive, clear, concise, because people don't want to spend time interpreting what you're trying to convey.
Yeah, I always tell my people, I just put out a blog post on some punctuation marks make absolutely no sense in the American system. I agree. Some of them, there's no point to them. They're arbitrary. But if something could be clearer based on using the correct punctuation, if something could be clearer shortening your sentences, if something could be clearer to a reader, not using big words that you probably couldn't spell on a really good day, you're not totally certain about the meaning, but it looks so good, then clarity goes out the window. And I don't think any of us, look, a squirrel, that kind of thing. We don't have time to investigate what did you really mean by that. So when we talk business writing, it's a wide topic. And back to your personal branding, I'm the grammar goddess.
Yes.
I kill myself to make sure that every single thing I put out is perfect. Now, I'm not perfect. I have a couple of good friends who will private message me and say, Susan, check the third paragraph because I think you might have missed a word. Darn. But I struggle with it because my brand is, I know what I'm doing. I know how to help you learn to do it better. And I better show you, not just tell you.
Yes.
And so I admit it, I obsess on what I write.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I take extra time myself, and we can argue whether perfection is needed or not, or expected when we talk about communicating casually. But even our casual messages could be misinterpreted if I was an employer looking through your timeline. And is all I'm going to see are casual, quote unquote, messages? I mean, you think, what message do you want to send?
Yeah. When I do my blog posts, again, they're consistent. There's several different kinds. Fridays are my fun days, but I keep them clean because I don't know who's going to read those either. I do find funny memes out there. Today was the Animal Kingdom. It was a good one, I believe. Mm-hmm. But I'm aware that I don't know who's looking at my profile on LinkedIn or BB or Medium or Thrive Global or on Facebook. I don't know for certain who's looking. And I don't want to have to explain that I had a bad day or something. So I'm very careful with my image there. Not with my friends, but with that kind of thing. I manage the image. I have to. And I think anyone in a business profession should be thinking along those lines. What was the old thing? You and I are probably old enough to remember our mother saying, "Don't put anything out that couldn't go on the front page of the New York Times."
Yeah, that was
something
definitely
along that line.
Well, that was my mom, and to even accentuate, she wrote for Life magazine. You remember Life magazine? Who didn't love Life magazine? Yes.
Your mother wrote for it?
She wrote for it. I should say occasionally. She was in advertising, but and a lot of my listeners going, she what? Yes, she wrote for Life magazine. And so she emphasized, she wrote for Life, for Good Housekeeping, for a couple of others. And the thing I heard growing up was good grammar, not in just writing, but in speaking. And so, so there was a time when I moved from New York City to Tampa, Florida. And Tampa, Florida, the language was a lot more casual in my particular my aunts and my neighborhood circle than it was where I lived in New York. And so
Mm-hmm.
one summer I remember them visiting me and says, "Yeah, you spoke perfect grammar when you left. What happened?" I'm going, "This is the South." This is people use ain't and y'all and all types of contraction all the time. But that goes in saying is that grammar is also a cross cultural aspect as well, and it's just better to be clearer and not as casual when you're expecting to impress an employer, or to seek the respect of other professionals rather
Mm-hmm.
than be casual and be misinterpreted.
And you can't always know how someone else will, but in a business setting, whether it's a client or a future boss or someone like you who's helping people find those future bosses, it's probably better to pull it back a little and just read it a few times. Is it respectful? Are there a couple of pleases and thank yous in there somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
A return client just came to me this morning and said, we need some help with manners in our writing. Okay, manners in your writing. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody seems to understand that please and thank you are extremely useful for the glue that holds people together, for the stuff that gets you past the little itchies that you don't like people. Please and thank you go a long way.
Okay.
And they said, this is business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think there is an etiquette that's pretty important, but I even think that even the simpler common things that we take for granted are can misinterpret a whole even 140 characters worth of an important statement, like commas. Commas can really, if they're not used correctly, can really send you down a rabbit hole that you may not come back from.
Love the idea of the rabbit hole. You were talking about commas, right?
Right.
Brooke? Yeah. There are a couple that I think are incredibly important. One's the Oxford comma, and I'm one of those pushers of it because here's my reality, Mark. I'm too lazy to read every sentence and say, boy, do I need that particular comma or not in this sentence? Will my reader understand the last two items don't go together without it? I don't want to play those games. We're of an age, I just don't want to play the game. So I push the Oxford comma and I say, use it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't like it, use it. Because someday there's going to be a sentence that would have been clear with it. And somebody's going to come and say, hey, Susan, hey, Mark, what did you mean by that? And you're going to think, wasn't I clear? It helps guard against the once or twice that somebody might write a sentence where, honestly, the last two items could be easily seen as going together, and you never intended that.
Right.
Somehow the comma shows people. Without it, the famous one, my heroes are my parents, comma, Superman and Wonder Woman. Without the comma, it looks like you're thinking your parents were Superman and Wonder Woman. Nice try.
Right.
Probably were not.
Right.
It's a silly one, but it sometimes helps people to say, oh. Clarity for me is the only goal. If I can't reach you, I've wasted your time and mine.
Right.
And so I'm going to do what I can
Mm-hmm.
to help make sure the communication goes well between us.
Yeah. Now, I think this to bring out another aspect is the colon and the semicolon, which have two totally different uses, but from time to time there's somebody who's really bright who uses the colon, but they use it in a way according to the way they speak. as opposed to the way that it'll be read. And I think that's the other part of grammar overall when you're using updates and you're trying to keep your professional brand professional. But I think sometimes you're trying to make something a little bit more complicated than it really should be.
I agree. And the reality, Mark, the last time any of us took a grammar class, we might have been 12, 13, 14, right?
Right.
We were junior high school, maybe high school. I challenge almost everybody listening to this podcast and anyone I'll meet in the next 30 years to just swear to me, hand on a Bible, the nose doesn't grow, that they remember everything they were taught and they actually cared when they were 13 years old. I didn't care.
Right.
How do you know you're going to grow up to care about such stuff? The teacher in front of you is in her 30s, God help us, she's ancient, and we want to go out and play. We want to talk to the cute boy next to us or the cute girl next to us. Grammar is one of those things we suffered through, most of us.
Yeah.
And then we grow up and we get to be professional. And we're out on a job and we realize we're clueless.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know a colon from a semicolon. We're sure we've heard the word, but beyond that, we're not sure. And that's why I do what I do, because those are things I actually know. There are only 3 good uses for a semicolon in business writing. Only 3. You learn them, move on. All the stuff's on my website, grammargoddess.com. People can type in a word like semicolons and get 12 articles. I would recommend people stop using semicolons and colons. If you're probably not doing it well, it's not necessarily helping the reader, especially someone who knows this. It's hard when you can't remember. And the other half of this, some people follow others. They say, Mark Dyson is a smart guy. And if Mark does it, it must be right. And Mark Dyson is a very smart guy. It just may not be in the thing I need him to be smart in. And not everyone who's smart in A is going to be smart in B.
Yeah.
You know, the question should never be, how smart is he? It should always be, how is he smart? And then we would maybe stop following people off a cliff because they did it that way. Yeah, well, it was wrong.
Yeah.
They're smart, but not in grammar. Nice try.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the and you made that point. There's so many resources that we can use that are out there. I carry around from time to time when I'm doing a lot of writing and the projects that I work on are writing intensive. I carry around the Grammar Girl writing books. Probably any of them would do. I carry around the E.B. White and Strunk and White manual for writing. And of course, some of those are on mobile, so you can actually just not having to carry around a book, you just carry around on your phone. So those things are pretty good tools to use, not just the quickie software. I understand people like to use Word. Word only covers so much of grammar. And they're better.
Not kidding.
Yeah. Someone had stated they only cover basically 25 to 50 grammar rules, and there's probably like 200 or 300 that are actually out there.
Yeah.
So I think there's you got to be careful on what you use as a tool. It'll get you a little closer, but sometimes closer isn't particularly going to make it clearer. Anything else you want to add on those as we begin to round down?
Well, the reality is I think anyone who is writing should, at the very least, use the word. It will help you to some degree. My problem with the word grammar check is that occasionally it says this word should be started with a capital letter because it's the first word on a line. Yeah, but it's not the first word of a sentence, and it's not a proper noun. So word, stuff it. I'm not capitalizing that one. But even I will use it just to see, did I miss a word? Did I double up on a word? Did I put an apostrophe where I didn't mean to because I type really fast? And I think as a backup, if you have nobody else, some of those can be very, very helpful. I still believe in my heart that you find yourself a good editor or copy editor who's seriously good at this stuff, because what the limit of something like Word or the Grammar Girl or any of those is, they can't say to you, Mark, what was your audience expecting out of this? Who is your audience? Are you writing to the level that they will probably understand? Why did you write this piece? Why did you choose this topic? Do you understand that you have no segues between those two paragraphs? They can't come at the person on a personal level. And that's what I do. Yeah. If I don't know why you're writing it, I'll ask you.
Yes.
If I don't know who your audience is, I'll ask you.
Yes. And just as in the spirit of full disclosure, I am a new client of the Grammar Goddess. So just so that we're clear, yeah. I'm getting some help too, because every time that I write her email, there is always something little that I tend to miss, and Susan picks it up every time. I said, well, I might as well, I'm benefiting from it. I might as well, use you. So that's that, and not to say that even before I was a current client that I read her blog posts, especially during the fall and winter time, when I need to find out what is some of the more proper etiquette of grammar in what I was writing, especially when it came to context. You had some very useful blog posts that I just loved and actually helped me a whole bunch. So
I'm glad.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyway, thank you so much, Susan, for coming back on the show. What is your preferred method of communication should people want to know about you, your services, and how to obtain your services?
They can always email me at susanr@grammargoddess.com, or they can just go to my website, grammargoddess.com. All the information is there. I would invite anybody who's listening who's on LinkedIn or BB or Medium or Thrive Global, an Ariana Huffington new publication that I now contribute to. If you're on any of those, link with me. Talk to me. Go find out what I've written. Only for this. My job is I see it. My goal is to help writers look and sound as smart as they are. And it would be my pleasure and privilege to help you make sure that what you think you've written is actually what you've written.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, Susan, again. And thank you very much for all of you who are listening. Again, if you want to comment on the show today, you can go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com and use the forms of communication I have laid out there in the meantime. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.